On the night Amira Brown married billionaire Anthony Braxton in a ceremony overlooking the National Mall, she hid beneath their wedding bed in the Hay Adams Hotel, her ivory dress pooling around her like a cloud, her heart racing with playful anticipation. She thought she was surprising her husband. She didn't know she was about to overhear the truth that would save her life. Welcome back to the Tales of the Fireplace, our beautiful family and friends. We are eager to meet you, and we can't wait to share these experiences and journey with you. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Because tomorrow, we will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now, back to the story. The mirror in Suite 1208 reflected a woman Amira Brown barely recognized. She stood in front of it, smoothing the silk of her wedding dress one last time, her dark skin glowing against the ivory fabric. 28 years old, and she'd finally done it. Married a man who saw her, chose her, loved her. At least that's what she'd told herself through 6 whirlwind months of courtship that felt more like a fever dream than a relationship. Her phone buzzed on the marble vanity. A text from Simone, her best friend since Howard University. "You good, sis? Call me when you can. Just want to hear your voice." Amira smiled, but something tight lodged in her chest. Simone had been careful during the wedding planning, supportive but quiet. Never outright negative about Anthony, but never enthusiastic either. During the bridal shower in DuPont Circle, Simone had pulled her aside. "You sure about this, Mira? It's just fast." Amira had laughed it off. "When you know, you know." But now, standing alone in this hotel suite that cost more per night than her monthly rent in Columbia Heights, she wondered if Simone had seen something she'd been too dazzled to notice. She touched the diamond necklace Anthony had given her that morning. "Something borrowed," he'd said, though it was clearly new. Clearly expensive, clearly his way of marking her as his. The weight of it felt heavier now. "Stop it," she told herself. "You're being paranoid. This is your wedding night." She'd met Anthony Braxton at a charity gala at the National Portrait Gallery 6 months ago. She'd been there representing her small but growing interior design firm, Brown & Co. Designs, hoping to network, maybe land a client or two. She hadn't expected a man in a $12,000 suit to approach her by the Kehinde Wiley portraits and say, "You look like you're actually interested in the art, not just the champagne." She'd laughed. "I'm here for both, honestly." He'd smiled. God, that smile. And introduced himself. Anthony Braxton, founder and CEO of Braxton Technologies, a DC-based tech empire worth north of $3 billion. Forbes had just named him one of the most influential under 45. And he wanted to talk to her. The courtship had been intoxicating. Private dinners at Fiola Mare, weekend trips to Martha's Vineyard. He'd surprised her at her tiny studio in Columbia Heights, with flowers, with gifts, with attention that felt like sunlight after years of dating men who barely texted back. He proposed on a yacht in the Potomac, the Washington Monument glowing behind him, and she'd said yes before she'd even processed the question. Her mother had cried. Her father, gone since she was 12, would have walked her down the aisle if he'd been alive. Instead, her uncle had done it, and when he'd handed her off to Anthony at the altar of the historic mansion on O Street, he'd whispered, "You sure, baby girl?" She'd nodded. "I'm sure." But now, alone in this suite, she realized something she hadn't let herself admit. Anthony had made every decision. The venue, the date, the honeymoon destination, Bali, though she'd wanted something simpler. Even the prenup, handed to her by his lawyer that very morning, just hours before the ceremony. "It's standard," Anthony had said, his hand warm on the small of her back. "Just protects both of us. Sign here, baby. We've got a wedding to get to." She'd signed. She hadn't read it. The memory made her stomach twist. Stop, she told herself again. You're overthinking. He loves you. Amira heard the suite door click open. Her pulse jumped. Anthony was back. An idea, spontaneous, a little silly, seized her. She wanted to do something romantic, something that wasn't planned by him, something that was hers. She glanced at the bed, the ornate frame, the heavy duvet. Why not? She kicked off her heels, gathered the train of her dress, and crouched down. The bed skirt lifted easily. The space beneath was dim, carpeted, and just big enough. Amira slid under the bed, her heart pounding with nervous excitement. She'd surprise him, maybe scare him a little. They'd laugh. It would be a story they'd tell for years. She adjusted her dress, tucking the fabric close so it wouldn't peek out, and waited, smiling in the darkness. The suite door opened. Anthony Braxton checked his Patek Philippe as he stepped into the hallway of the Hay Adams, the phone still pressed to his ear. I don't care what the board says, Marcus. We close the acquisition by end of quarter or heads roll. Mine won't be one of them. He ended the call without waiting for a response and pocketed the phone. 41 years old, and he'd built an empire by never waiting for permission. Braxton Technologies controlled cloud infrastructure for half the federal government. Senators returned his calls. The president had his private number, and tonight he'd locked down another asset. Amira. He smiled as he approached Suite 1208. She was beautiful. He'd give her that. Educated. Poised enough to stand beside him at galas without embarrassing him. And, most importantly, she had that wide-eyed optimism that made her easy to manage. He'd learned long ago that the best partnerships were built on control, not love. Love was a variable. Control was a constant. The wedding had gone smoothly. His colleagues had approved. His mother, calling from her estate in Napa, had said Amira seemed sweet, which was code for non-threatening. Perfect. The prenup had been the final piece. She'd signed it that morning without question, just as he'd known she would. The contract was ironclad. If the marriage ended due to her misconduct, a term his lawyers had defined broadly enough to mean anything, she'd walk away with nothing. Not the house in Kalorama he'd already told her they'd share, not the joint accounts he'd promised to open. Nothing. She didn't know that, of course, and she wouldn't. Not until it was too late. Anthony slid the key card into the lock and pushed open the door. Jackson Cole was already inside, standing by the window, looking out over the White House. You're late, Jackson said without turning around. Anthony closed the door. It's my wedding night, Jack. I'm entitled to be fashionably late to my own room. Jackson turned, his expression unreadable. Jackson Cole, CFO of Braxton Technologies, Anthony's right hand for a decade, and the only person who knew exactly how Anthony operated. You sure about this one? Jackson asked, his voice low. Anthony poured himself a scotch from the bar cart. Sure about what? Jackson gestured vaguely. Her, Amira. She seems different. Anthony smirked. Different how? Naive? That's the point. Jack. Jackson's jaw tightened. I'm serious. She's not like the others. Anthony swirled his glass. No, she's exactly like the others. She just doesn't know it yet. Amira's smile vanished. Her breath caught in her throat, her body going rigid against the carpet. What? She pressed her hand over her mouth, her pulse roaring in her ears. Anthony's voice, smooth and casual, continued. The prenup's airtight? Jackson hesitated. Tony, I still think... Is it airtight or not? Yes. She signed it this morning. And she read it? Jackson scoffed. Does it matter? You handed it to her 2 hours before the ceremony. You stood over her while she signed. She didn't read a damn thing. Anthony laughed. It was a sound Amira had heard 100 times. Warm, rich. The laugh that had made her feel safe. Now it made her skin crawl. They never do, Anthony said. Not when you rush them. Not when you make them feel like questioning you means they don't trust you. Amira's eyes burned. She bit down on her knuckle to keep from making a sound. "And the clause?" Jackson asked. "The infidelity clause?" Anthony's tone was light, almost amused. "She doesn't know. Why would she? If I file for divorce citing her emotional instability or infidelity, even without proof, she walks away with nothing. Not a dime, not even her little design business." Silence. Then Jackson laughed, short, bitter. "You're a cold son of a bitch, Tony." "I'm a smart businessman." Amira's chest heaved. She clamped both hands over her mouth, tears streaming down her face, soaking into the carpet. "How long you planning to keep this one around?" Jackson asked. Anthony shrugged. She heard the clink of ice in his glass. 2 years, maybe. Long enough to look stable. She's good for my image. Young, successful, black. The optics are perfect. Then I'll get bored, file the paperwork, and move on. She'll be too humiliated to fight it." Jackson was quiet for a long moment. Then, "What if she does fight?" Anthony's voice dropped, cold and final. "She won't. I've already made sure of that." Footsteps. Jackson moved toward the door. "Enjoy your wedding night," Jackson said, his tone hollow. The door opened, then closed. Silence. Amira lay beneath the bed, her wedding dress twisted around her, her world collapsing in on itself. Above her, Anthony hummed softly. She heard him move to the bathroom, the sound of water running. She didn't move. She couldn't. Her mind screamed, "Get out! Run! Scream!" But a deeper instinct, older and wiser, whispered, "Stay silent, survive, gather everything," because if she revealed herself now, tear-streaked and trembling, he would twist it, gaslight her, tell her she'd misunderstood, that she was emotional, unstable. No. Amira Brown stared up at the underside of the bed, her heart pounding, her breath shallow, and made a decision. "I will not be another woman he erases. Before we go further, let me ask you something. Have you ever ignored a gut feeling about someone, only to realize later you were right? Drop a comment. I want to hear your story." The shower turned off. Amira forced herself to breathe slowly, silently, her chest rising and falling in careful rhythm. Above her, she heard Anthony moving around the bathroom, the rustle of a towel, the cabinet opening and closing, the casual sounds of a man completely at ease. A man who had just admitted to trapping her. Her phone was in her clutch on the nightstand. 15 feet away. It might as well have been a mile. Anthony emerged from the bathroom, and she saw his bare feet cross the carpet. He sat on the edge of the bed, and the mattress dipped above her head. She went completely still. "Baby," he called out, his voice warm, concerned. "Amira? You here?" She didn't breathe. He stood, walked to the closet, checked the bathroom again. "Huh. Must still be downstairs." He returned to the bed, and she heard the rustle of sheets as he slid under the covers. Within minutes, his breathing deepened, evening out into the rhythm of sleep. He's asleep, she thought, disbelieving. He just destroyed my life, and now he's sleeping. Amira waited. 10 minutes. 20. Her legs cramped. Her back ached. The carpet fibers pressed patterns into her palms. Finally, she heard him snore softly. She moved. Inch by inch, she slid out from under the bed, dragging her dress with her, every movement glacial. Her muscles screamed. Her hands shook so badly she had to pause, pressing her forehead against the carpet, willing herself not to fall apart. Not yet. Stay focused. She emerged on the far side of the bed, away from where Anthony slept. In the dim light filtering through the curtains, she could see his silhouette. One arm thrown over his face. The man she'd married 6 hours ago. The stranger she'd never known. Amira grabbed her clutch from the nightstand, her movements slow, deliberate. She pulled out her phone. 2:47 a.m. 12 missed calls from Simone. 3 texts. Girl, where you at? You good? Call me. Amira, I'm worried. Please just send me something. Amira's throat tightened. She started to type a response, then stopped. What would she even say? Hey, my husband's a sociopath who married me for optics and plans to destroy me in 2 years? Her eyes fell on Anthony's laptop, open on the desk by the window. The screen was dark, but the power light glowed green. Unlocked. Her heart hammered. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to grab her shoes and her phone and disappear into the DC night. But another voice, clearer and colder, cut through the panic. If you run now, you have nothing. No proof. Just your word against a billionaire's. Amira crossed to the desk. Her hands trembled as she touched the trackpad. The screen blazed to life and she flinched, glancing back at the bed. Anthony didn't stir. She opened his email. What she found made her stomach turn. A folder labeled AB Marital Assets. Inside, spreadsheets, property assessments, financial projections. Her name appeared dozens of times, each instance clinical, transactional. Subject demonstrates strong emotional dependence, low risk of resistance, net worth minimal, primary value, reputational. There was more. Emails to Jackson. Make sure the infidelity clause is buried on page 38. She won't read that far. Another folder, another name. KL, previous. Amira clicked it. Documents. Divorce filings, settlement agreements. A woman named Kendra Lewis. Photos of her, beautiful, confident, smiling beside Anthony at Gallus. Then, court documents, a restraining order, medical records partially redacted. Amira's vision blurred. He's done this before. She grabbed her phone and started photographing everything. The emails, the spreadsheets, the folders. Her hands shook so badly some of the photos came out blurred, but she kept going, clicking, saving, documenting. A sound. Anthony shifted in the bed. Amira froze, phone in hand, standing in the middle of the suite in her wedding dress like a ghost. Anthony mumbled something, rolled over, and settled again. She couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Then, slowly, she backed away from the desk, clutching her phone like a lifeline. She slipped into the bathroom and locked the door. The moment the lock clicked, her knees gave out. She sank to the cold marble floor, her wedding dress pooling around her, and pressed her fist against her mouth to muffle the sob that tore from her chest. Everything had been a lie. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and opened her messages. She typed quickly. Simone, I need help. Don't call. Come to the Hay Adams, Suite 1208, room key at front desk under your name, please. She hit send. Then she sat on that bathroom floor, staring at herself in the mirror, mascara streaked, eyes wild, a bride who looked like she'd crawled out of a nightmare. Because she had. The reply came 6 minutes later. On my way, 15 minutes, don't do anything. Just wait for me. Amira set the phone down and stared at the locked door. She wanted to scream, to throw something. To march out there and wake Anthony up and demand answers, demand the truth he'd never given her. But what would that accomplish? He'd deny it, twist it, tell her she was being emotional, irrational. He'd probably recorded her signing that prenup. Had witnesses. His lawyers would annihilate her before she even understood what hit her. No. If she confronted him now, she lost. Think, Amira. Think. She opened her phone and scrolled through the photos she'd taken. Evidence. Cold, documented proof. But of what, exactly? That he'd manipulated her? That he'd planned this? She needed more. She needed a lawyer. She needed... A knock on the bathroom door made her jump. Amira! Anthony's voice, groggy, confused. Baby, you in there? Her pulse spiked. She looked around wildly, then forced herself to steady. Yeah, she called, surprised by how normal her voice sounded. I'm not feeling well. Something I ate, I think. A pause. You okay? You need anything? I need you to disappear, she thought. No, I'm fine. Just give me a few minutes. Okay. He sounded concerned, gentle. I'll be right here if you need me. His footsteps retreated. Amira closed her eyes and leaned her head back against the door. He's good, she thought. He's so good at this. 15 minutes later, her phone buzzed. Simone. I'm here, lobby. Amira stood, smoothed her dress, and unlocked the bathroom door. Anthony was sitting up in bed, scrolling through his phone. He looked up when she emerged, his expression soft with concern. You okay? She forced a smile. Yeah, I think I just need some air. Maybe walk around the hotel a bit. He frowned. At 3 in the morning? I'm too wired to sleep. She moved toward the door, grabbing her clutch. I'll be back soon. Anthony stood. Want me to come with you? No. The word came out too fast. She softened it with another smile. No, I need a minute alone, Process the day. He studied her for a moment, and for the first time she saw it. The calculation behind his eyes, the assessment. Then he smiled. Okay, baby. Don't be long. She walked out before he could say anything else. Simone was waiting in a corner of the lobby, still dressed in her bridesmaid gown from the reception, her face tight with worry. The moment she saw Amira, wedding dress wrinkled, makeup destroyed, eyes hollow, she stood. Mira? Not here, Amira whispered. They found a quiet alcove near the closed hotel bar. Amira collapsed into a velvet chair, and everything she'd been holding back came pouring out in a torrent of whispered words. He doesn't love me. It was all planned. He married me for optics, Simone. For his image. There's a clause in the prenup that lets him divorce me and take everything if he claims I'm unstable or unfaithful, and he doesn't even need proof. Slow down. Simone gripped her hands. Start from the beginning. Amira told her everything. The conversation she'd overheard, Jackson, the laptop, the files on other women. Simone's expression darkened with each revelation. Show me what you found. Amira pulled out her phone, hands still trembling, and scrolled through the photos. Simone leaned in, her lawyer brain already working. She zoomed in on one of the emails, then another. Amira, Simone looked up, her voice careful. This is premeditated fraud, financial coercion, maybe even... She stopped. What? Simone pulled up something on her own phone, typing quickly. I'm looking up his previous marriage, the one to Kendra Lewis. She scrolled, her face growing paler. What is it? Amira pressed. Simone turned the phone toward her. A news article from 3 years ago. Tech mogul's ex-wife hospitalized after breakdown. Amira's blood went cold. The article was vague, but the implication was clear. Kendra Lewis had suffered a mental health crisis during divorce proceedings. The settlement had been sealed. She'd signed an NDA, and then she'd vanished from public life entirely. He did this to her, Amira whispered. He made her look unstable so he could walk away clean, Simone finished. And he's planning to do the same to you. The words hung in the air between them. Amira felt something inside her go very still. The panic receded, replaced by something colder, sharper. What do I do? Simone set her jaw. First, you don't go back up to that room alone, not tonight, not ever. I have to. If I disappear, he'll know something's wrong, He'll what? Amira, this man is dangerous. I know. Amira's voice was steady now. Which is why I can't run. Not yet. If I disappear tonight, he controls the narrative. He'll say I abandoned him, that I'm unstable, that I had a breakdown. Simone stared at her. So what are you saying? I'm saying... Amira took a breath. I go back upstairs. I act normal. and I buy us time to figure out how to destroy this prenup and everything he's built. Mira, I'm not the first woman he's done this to, Simone, but I'm going to be the last. Simone made Amira promise to text her every hour. Then she watched her friend disappear into the elevator, still wearing that wrinkled wedding dress, and pulled out her phone. She had calls to make. Upstairs, Amira slipped back into suite 1208. Anthony was asleep again, sprawled across the bed like he didn't have a care in the world. She stood in the doorway watching him. 6 months ago, she'd thought she'd found her soulmate. How did I miss this? But even as she asked the question, she knew the answer. She'd been so desperate to be chosen, to be loved by someone successful and powerful, that she'd ignored every red flag. The way he'd isolated her from Simone and her other friends, always with reasonable excuses. They don't understand our lifestyle, baby. The way he'd made every decision, from where they ate to what she wore to events. Trust me, I know what works. The way he'd rushed the engagement, the wedding, the prenup. Why wait when you know it's right? She'd mistaken control for care. Amira moved silently to the closet and changed out of her wedding dress. She hung it carefully, her hands steady now. Then she slid into bed beside the man who'd married her as a business transaction. Anthony stirred, reaching for her in his sleep, his arm draped over her waist. She lay there, rigid, staring at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed softly. A text from Simone. I found a lawyer, best in D.C. for prenup fraud. Her name is Patricia Okonkwo. We meet her tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Then another message. And Mira, I found Kendra Lewis. She's willing to talk. Amira's heart stopped. She typed back. How? Because she's been waiting 3 years for someone to ask. Morning came too quickly. Anthony woke first, stretching, yawning, completely at ease. He kissed Amira's forehead. Morning, Mrs. Braxton. The name felt like a brand. She forced a smile. Morning. How are you feeling? Better? Yeah, much better. He studied her face, and for a moment she thought he saw through her. But then he smiled. Good. I have meetings all day. But tonight we'll do something nice. Just us. Celebrate properly. Sounds perfect, she lied. He showered, dressed in a suit that cost more than her first car, and left with a casual kiss. The moment the door closed, Amira exhaled. She had 3 hours before the meeting with Patricia Okonkwo. She used every minute. She went through Anthony's laptop again, this time copying files to a secure cloud drive Simone had set up. She photographed documents. She recorded a video statement, narrating everything she'd overheard, everything she'd found. Then she took a long shower, washing away the feeling of Anthony's arm around her waist, and dressed in her own clothes, jeans, a simple blouse, herself again. At 8:45 a.m., she met Simone in the lobby. Ready? Simone asked. Amira nodded. Let's go end him. Real talk. If you discovered something like this, would you confront immediately or play it smart and gather evidence first? Comment below. I need to know what you'd do. Patricia Okonkwo's office in Georgetown was all glass and steel, sharp, uncompromising, exactly like the woman herself. She listened to Amira's story without interruption, her dark eyes never leaving Amira's face. When Amira finished, Patricia leaned back in her chair. You have everything you need to invalidate this prenup, she said simply. Fraud, coercion, lack of informed consent. He rushed you, he misrepresented the terms, and he had clear intent to deceive. Amira felt something loosen in her chest. So, I can walk away with everything you're entitled to? Yes. Patricia's smile was razor sharp. But we're not just walking away, Mrs. Braxton. We're going to make sure he never does this again. Then Patricia made a call. 20 minutes later, a woman walked into the office. She was in her mid-30s, beautiful but worn, her eyes carrying the weight of someone who'd survived something terrible. She wore a simple dress and no wedding ring. Kendra Lewis. Amira stood. "Thank you for coming." Kendra's smile was sad. "I should have come forward years ago." They sat together, and Kendra told her story. The whirlwind romance, the rushed wedding, the prenup she'd signed without reading, the way Anthony had systematically isolated her, controlled her, then discarded her when she started asking questions. "He made me think I was losing my mind," Kendra said quietly. "He'd move my things, then tell me I'd misplaced them. He'd cancel plans and swear we'd never made them. And when I finally confronted him, he filed for divorce and claimed I was mentally unstable." "The hospitalization?" Amira asked. Kendra's hands trembled. "I had a panic attack during the divorce proceedings. He used it against me, said I was a danger to myself. I signed the NDA just to make it stop." Patricia leaned forward. "Ms. Lewis, would you be willing to submit an affidavit, to go on record?" Kendra looked at Amira. "Will it help you?" "It'll help everyone he might hurt after me," Amira said. Kendra nodded. "Then yes." That night, Amira returned to the Hay Adams for the last time. Anthony was waiting, champagne on ice, a smile on his face. "There's my beautiful wife." She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw nothing. No love, no warmth, just calculation. "We need to talk," she said. His smile faltered. "About what?" She set her purse down on the table. "About Kendra Lewis." The color drained from his face. "About the prenup I signed without reading. About the clause on page 38. About the emails on your laptop detailing exactly how you plan to use me for 2 years and then discard me." Anthony's mask cracked. "Amira!" "I heard everything, Anthony. That first night. I was under the bed." Silence. His face went through a dozen expressions: shock, anger, calculation, before settling on something smooth and concerned. "Baby, you're not thinking clearly. You're stressed. Maybe we should—" "I have copies of everything," she said calmly. "Emails, files, financial records, and I have Kendra. She's willing to testify." Anthony's jaw clenched. "You're making a mistake." "No," Amira said. "I made a mistake when I married you. I'm fixing it now." He stepped toward her, and for the first time she saw fear in his eyes. "If you do this, I'll destroy you. I have resources you can't imagine, lawyers, connections. I'll make sure you never work in this city again." Amira picked up her purse. "Try." She walked to the door. "Amira." His voice was cold now. "You'll regret this." She turned back. "The only thing I regret is not listening to myself sooner." And she left. 3 months later, Amira stood in her new studio apartment in Shaw, sunlight streaming through the windows. The prenup had been invalidated. Anthony had fought it, of course, hired the best lawyers, tried to paint her as vindictive, unstable. But Patricia had dismantled him piece by piece in court. Kendra's testimony had been devastating. So had the emails. The judge had called Anthony's behavior predatory and calculated. The divorce settlement gave Amira everything she was entitled to, and more. Anthony had been forced to pay her legal fees, compensate her for emotional distress, and submit to a gag order preventing him from disparaging her. Better yet, 3 more women had come forward. Anthony Braxton's empire was crumbling, one lawsuit at a time. Simone walked in, carrying coffee and pastries from the cafe down the street. "Morning, free woman?" Amira laughed. "Morning." Her phone buzzed. A message from Kendra. "Thank you for being brave enough to fight. You gave me my voice back." Amira smiled and typed back, "We gave each other our voices back." She looked around her small apartment, her space paid for with her money, decorated with her choices, and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not because she'd won, but because she'd trusted herself. That night, as she sat on her tiny balcony watching the DC skyline glow, Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then curiosity won. Hello? Amira Brown? A woman's voice, warm, professional. My name is Jasmine Reed. I run a nonprofit for women escaping financial abuse. I read about your case. Would you consider speaking at our next event? Amira's throat tightened. Me? You stood up when it mattered. That means something. Amira looked out at the city that had almost swallowed her whole, and smiled. Yes, she said. I'll speak. 6 months later, Amira stood on a stage at the Kennedy Center, looking out at 200 women who'd come to hear her story. She told them about the bed, about the fear, about the moment she chose clarity over comfort. I didn't win because I was fearless, she said. I won because I was afraid, and I acted anyway. The applause was thunderous. Backstage, Simone hugged her. You did that, sis. We did that, Amira corrected. As they walked out into the D.C. night, Amira's phone buzzed one last time. A news alert. Anthony Braxton steps down as CEO amid multiple fraud allegations. She deleted the notification without reading further. She didn't need to know what happened to him. She was too busy building what came next. So here's my question for you. What's one thing you're going to stop ignoring in your life after hearing this story? Drop it in the comments. Let's hold each other accountable. And if this story moved you, if it made you think twice about trust, love, or listening to yourself, do me a favor. Subscribe. Share this. Because somewhere out there, someone needs to hear that it's never too late to choose yourself.